Good afternoon, Louisiana. Welcome to Bayou Bets for Tuesday, January the 17th. Coming to you a day late as because of the holiday, a day later than usual, and also a person short. Spencer, the Guru Urquhart, having some technical issues, but hopefully will be joining us before too long. But I'm Zach Ewing. That's Jim Derry, and we're here for another week recapping the NFL wildcard round, looking forward to the divisional round. Jim, it was a crazy weekend. It was this close to being insanely craziest weekend in NFL playoff history type craziness. We didn't quite get there in a couple of games, but still a good weekend.
I'm just glad I'm not the only one who's late, so other people can be late too.
Occasionally.
So, look, I will say this. Not only was it maybe one game away or just missed on being a perfect excitement full of weekend, I was one game away from having an absolutely perfect betting weekend, and I put way too much stock in Tampa Bay and learned, even though we've been doing this for a while, and I know we've both been doing this a lot longer than we've been together doing Bayou Bets, but, you still learn stuff. You learn not to, I didn't realize how much I had invested in Tampa Bay until I went through it Sunday night. And then the only thing I could really do was hedge, and after going through it, I realized there was no value in hedging. I don't regret not hedging, even though it was obviously a terrible loss last night. Had way too much bucks, way too much faith in Tom Brady, but there just was. I wasn't going to make a bad bet, and at least I did that. I didn't make a bad bet. I would have won some of the money that I lost back had I done it, but it still wouldn't have been the right value play. So,
yeah, and if that game. Look, the Cowboys dominated that game, but if you look at it, if Brady doesn't throw the interception in the end zone, or if the Cowboys get stopped on 4th and goal on the next possession, that game's very much closer at the end. I still think the Cowboys probably win it, but from a point spread perspective, and certainly from a teaser perspective, which I know you had some money wrapped up in teasers, the Bucs would have had a much better chance in that one. But look, that's the NFL.
And as sick as it was, like if they score in that last possession, I have a chance to either push one teaser and lose the other one, or if they go for two, win one teaser and push the other. So, I mean, that's how sick it was. That's how much I was getting on Tampa Bay. And that, again, they deserve to lose. They deserve to lose like they lost. But, we're going to get into next week's games. But, you learn a lesson. No matter how long you're doing it, at some point in the season of a football season, you learn multiple lessons. I learned another one last night. And, I won't make that mistake again, at least not anytime soon.
Jerry's here. Good afternoon, Jerry.
Hello
He's happy
there, Jerry.
that the Bucs are eliminated. I'm sure that is echoing a lot of Saints fans. And Spencer the Guru's here. He got the brick wall put up just in time for the show, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was going on, fellas. My apologies, man. Everything was going crazy. I had my setup ready to log on, and then just the internet went out, and I couldn't find my background. I was like, oh my gosh! Of course, all hell breaks loose right when we're about to start.
Is that the brick wall you're banging your head against?
Yeah, that's the way my big bucks picks went. Yeah.
I thought maybe he was getting his face paint ready for this week, but I guess not.
It washed off nicely.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, it did.
I want to mention before we get going too far that we are brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook, and we have a special offer for new Caesars users. You can get 3 of our commemorative posters of front pages from LSU championships, past Joe Burrow Heisman's, wins over Alabama, things of that nature. We've got like 15 to 20 choices for you. You pick out 3 of them and get all 3 sent to your house for free just for being a new user, signing up, making a minimum of a $10 bet. So LSUposter.com for that deal.
I'm not sure why
you get the pores cleaned. You get a little exfoliant in there and stuff. Looking fresh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why Saints fans are, and Jerry, good for you if you're rooting against the Bucs, fine, but it's Dallas. Who the hell roots for Dallas? I mean, Tampa Bay, Dallas, it's all the evil world. One way or the other was going to be moved on into the next week. So, I mean, even if I had not had a bet on it, who cares? I mean, I was rooting for Tampa, obviously, because of bets. But, I mean, had I not had a bet on it, I wouldn't have cared who won, lost. I'd have cheered for the loser.
I grew up a Cowboys fan. I'll admit it. I'm not really anymore. But in New Mexico, you either grow up a Cowboys fan or a Broncos fan, pretty much. And so I was a Cowboys fan as a '90s kid, and so that was fun. I've kind of grown out of that, so to speak. So I don't really care, but it is nice to see them relevant again. And I think the segue here is we had all these great near upsets and everything. We had these it sets up. Oh, next weekend's just phenomenal.
Indeed.
It's just phenomenal.
Weird
so real
lines.
quick, yeah, we'll recap the wild card results here. Obviously the Chargers blowing that huge lead. That was a weird game because the Jaguars statistically dominated that game, the turnovers, but it would have been played differently if the Chargers didn't have a big lead. It was just a weird game. And it was one of those things, Jim, you and I both hit the money line. I think Uncle Big Nick hit it big. Like you could feel it coming. Beyond just the matchups on the field or whatever, you could feel about the middle of the third quarter, like if the Chargers win this game, it's because they're going to hang on by their fingernails.
Had I not been out with friends on a rare Saturday night out and about 3 vodkas in, I probably would have maybe won a little bit more. But, I was trying to be like Spencer. He was at a wedding and probably enjoying himself. I enjoyed myself probably a little too much.
Yeah, that was crazy. I didn't see the game, but I did see the last second field goal. I saw they were watching it on somebody's phone. I was like, why are y'all watching it? This game's over, right? Nope, the Jags are about to win it, and sure enough, they won it. I was like, let's go, Jags money line. I had that. I was so happy.
Yeah, that was about as poorly. I mean, it just goes to show you the difference between a good coach and a bad coach. And, I mean, I've been saying for 2 years now, Brandon Staley is an awful, awful coach. How he still has his job, I have no idea. But it looks like he's going to keep it. They fired Joe Lombardi like it was Joe Lombardi deciding, okay, let's throw the ball when we're up 27-7. Let's throw it 3 times in a row. I just don't get it. I mean, if you're the head coach, you say, if Lombardi's actually calling those plays, you step in and say, we're not throwing them. And then at the end, then they were trying to run out the clock when it's too late to run out the clock. Then you should be trying to get first downs. It was
you wasted a timeout on a challenge that had no chance. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
This is, and no. By the way, nobody hit that game like our friend Uncle Big Nick did. $100 on Jags money line at 25-1. So congrats to Uncle Big Nick. Here's my thing on Brandon Staley. He obviously has struggled his first 2 years. Most of what people said about him last year was, this is a guy who'll go for it on 4th and 2 from his own 19. What the hell is he doing? He has no idea. All he pays attention to is the analytics. Well, Saturday night, he was the opposite of that. He was ultra conservative with this big lead.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in the NFL. There's too much time left.
Here's my
he punted from plus territory. He did, he kicked a field goal that they missed, but of course he didn't know that. But still, had they get the first down in that situation, I think it was 4th and 3. The game's probably over because at that point they can take it under 5 minutes. They still got a two score lead. It was like he was not being true to what it's like he heard the criticism and all of a sudden thought, I can't do it that way. I got to do it this way. And that's never a good. I mean, you guys know professionally, if you're not who you are, you're costing yourself in many ways other than just mistakes.
I couldn't agree more. I hate, and I hate the way he coaches. I hate I mean, look, it's well documented. You and I have gone at it back and forth. But that being said, if that's the way you coach, then why would you change and play, like you're scared? Because to me, that's how he played when it was 27-0. He played dumb, and then he played like he was scared. So, I mean, it was a combination of just a comedy of errors for this guy who's, frankly, just doesn't deserve to be a head coach in the NFL. And the only reason why he's still coaching, he probably would have been fired from about 29 other teams. The Chargers are just so damn cheap. They're not like the Cardinals. I mean, at least the Cardinals are willing to spend money. We're willing to give Cliff Kingsbury his money to get him the hell out of here. They don't want to give Staley any more money. They don't want to give him money for not coaching. So we'll just live with having a bad coach and wasting another year of Justin Herbert's career because that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I mean, it's like you have a perfect chance to get Sean Payton. He's willing to get back into coaching. He's got interviews scheduled with 4 teams, and you've got the goods. You've got Justin Herbert. You've got a talented roster, pretty solid defense, and yet your coach just keeps sabotaging you year after year, and yet they just, like you said, Jim, they're just too cheap. That's why they're probably going to never win a Super Bowl.
Nope.
Is Joe Lombardi a candidate in New Orleans?
Yes and no. the fact that he has history here and Loomis likes him, and I'm sure Dennis Allen likes him and has history with him, makes him a candidate. But if he was calling those plays in that game and making those decisions, then I'm not sure that I want Joe Lombardi. He did a lot when he was here. I mean, granted, he's a lot better than some of the other things that we either had or could have. But, nobody's talking about Joe Brady. That's the guy that I want.
Yeah.
I will say this in Lombardi's defense, a little bit at least. The Chargers played that second half conservatively, obviously. They had a big lead. They had a 20-point lead. They only gave the Jaguars 4 possessions, which really is the goal. If you give them 4 possessions with a 20-point lead, figure we score on one of our 4, there's no way they can catch us. Well, the problem was the Jaguars scored 3 touchdowns and then could have probably scored a 4th touchdown and got the game-winning field goal instead. That was a failure of the Chargers defense.
You say that, though, Zach. You say that, Zach, and here's 3 plays of play-by-play for you. Okay, you're up 27-7. It's the third quarter. You get a first down, great. 1st and 10 at the Jacksonville 38. Herbert incomplete, short right to Everett. 2nd and 10 from the Jacksonville 38. Herbert incomplete, short right to Keenan Allen. 3rd and 10. Herbert incomplete, short to Eckler. You run 14 seconds off the clock when you've got one of the best running backs in football. I mean, Austin Eckler to me is a top 6 or 7. I'm not just talking about fantasy. Fantasy is probably top 3.
He's number 1 in fantasy.
Or number 1. Okay, number 1 in fantasy. I think in real football, he's probably top 5. So you don't even try to run the ball twice there and run a minute and a half off the clock. And I get that it's only the third quarter, but you're up 3 touchdowns. Give him the ball twice. I mean,
I don't remember those exact plays. I mean, it sounds they were all short passes. Like, I don't know if there were drops or tipped at the line where they were, they were passes, but they were really like supposed to meant to be running game plays. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, but let's transition to the next week because I think
it's a hot take.
Nearly enough.
I actually agree to a certain. I mean, it's not going to be 65-7, but I agree with Uncle Big Nick here. I think the Jags have run out of energy, shall we say? They're going up a level. This is the first game of the weekend. I think the Chiefs blow their doors off. I think it's a double-digit game.
By the way, real quick, Zach, and this is my last point on Chargers. Austin Eckler, 13 carries for 35 yards in a game you led 27-0. There is zero excuse for that.
They only ran 14, 15 plays in the entire second half.
23. They had 23 rushes for 67 yards, and 3 of them were Herbert. So I'm sure he was just trying to escape there. So those were going to be 3 pass attempts because he doesn't have designed runs. Herbert does, unless it's 3rd and 1 or whatever.
Right. And some of that may be game plan going in, but you've also got to adjust. And I agree. I mean, I think obviously mistakes were made, right, as they say. But I also think in some ways it was the perfect storm where the defense couldn't get off the field. They felt like they had to play conservative because they were up big. That's not their game. And it just sort of snowballed on them. Like I said, you could feel it in that third quarter that Jacksonville was going to come back and at least bring that game down to the wire. But now they go to Kansas City, guys, and it's obviously the Chiefs have had the bye week. The Chiefs hadn't been super impressive going down the stretch of the regular season, but I think that's almost by design. I think you run vanilla game plans and stuff when you know you're going to win anyway. Now it's showtime for Pat Mahomes and that crew. I like the Chiefs big in this spot.
What scares me about that, I think it's a perfect teaser leg because it's 8.5. You got to do it while it's still 8.5 so you can get it to 2.5. Okay. You can't wait because that's not going to stay 8.5. I think it's going to go up because I think Mabel's going to be all over the Chiefs.
It actually opened 9.5, quickly went down to 9
because the sharps jumped on it, and then now it's a great teaser leg. That being said, here's what scares me. Jacksonville's been at home for a few weeks now, and they played on Saturdays. It's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things for them to go on the road now after they're fairly well rested. I mean, I get that Kansas City had the bye week and all. I don't love the way Kansas City's been playing. I'm not saying I'm not going to take Kansas City. I'm still going through it all. I may take Kansas City spread-wise, but it does make me nervous to just say, because everybody's just assuming the Chiefs are going to win. And they probably will. But I don't know that I absolutely love a team, especially a Jacksonville team that's basically been in playoff mode for going into the third week now. They had to beat Tennessee. They obviously had the big comeback. It's certainly not going to be a best bet where I give 8.5. I will tell you that. I'm not defending them. By the way,
yeah, I was gonna say,
I'm not defending them at all. I'm giving you a reason why it's probably not a good idea to make that a best bet. I'm not telling you not to bet Kansas City minus 8.5. I'm telling you it's a good teaser leg. I do think they'll win, but there are reasons why you can't I don't think can make this a best bet. There are other games to me that are better. And of the 4 games on the card, this is probably the last one that I would bet spread wise.
I actually may feel the strongest about it. I have to dig into the other games a little bit, but I just think that the Jaguars have the feel of that team. You know what this year reminds me of a little bit is, and Spencer, I want your take on this game too in a second, but it reminds me a little bit when I was growing up in the mid '90s. Wild Card Weekend was always fun, and I'm speaking mostly of the NFC here, but Wild Card Weekend was always fun, and you know Barry Sanders Lions or Brett Favre's Packers or trying to think of the other teams, the Panthers later on in the decade.
They didn't make it all that much.
A couple times, but you know you'd have these different teams in there, and they'd be battling it out to see who would make it, and then they would go and play the teams that had the byes, and it was always the Cowboys and the Niners, and then later in the decade it was the Packers, and those teams with the byes were just laying in wait, and those divisional round games were never close in the NFC for like 6 years running. I mean, they would just kill whoever was left because they're at a different level, and that's what this reminds me of. This is now you got 3. You can throw the Bengals in with the Bills and the Chiefs, but everybody else in that conference is lower, and whoever it is that advanced the divisional round, congrats to Jacksonville, but the party's over now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably, my early lean here would be to take Kansas City to cover. I've been a Jacksonville truther, pretty much all year, but it's Trevor Lawrence. It's like a pendulum with him. Sometimes he'll look really good, and other times he'll just suck. So it's hard for me to feel good about him here. I feel like it's just one of those ones where you got to rock chalk because Patrick Mahomes, the way he's playing, had the bye week. I just don't see where Jacksonville is going to have enough to cover that.
It's too easy.
That's what he said about Georgia, and look how that went.
No, that's not what I said about Georgia. That's not at all what I said about Georgia, but it is what I said about the Ravens and the Dolphins.
Yeah, those are some wild ones.
The other AFC game, as mentioned, Bengals-Bills. This spread has been on the rise. It opened 3.5 up to 5.
0 cents.
Buffalo. Buffalo probably beat Miami worse than the score would look because of the turnovers and return yardage and things like that. But Buffalo's kind of been doing that all year. So maybe that's just them.
Here's another overreaction of what we saw, and we're going to get to another one in just a minute. Another overreaction of what we saw. People forgot what we saw in the early window on Sunday and the Bills and Josh Allen turning the football over, which is what he does now, by the way. This is not some 1 or 2 week thing. Josh Allen turns the football over. He does it on a reoccurring basis. And the Bengals stunk against the Ravens, but it's not a surprise that they stunk against the Ravens. The Ravens know them as well as anybody. They're in the same division. They play all the time. I don't understand this line at all. To me, you're telling me that the Bills would be a 7 or an 8 point favorite on a neutral site, and that is absurd. There is no way.
The Bills are at home.
Exactly.
So a neutral site, they would be more like a 2.5, 3 point.
Okay, so let me ask you this: do you think, just in general, do you think that the Bills are a better team than the Bengals? Just in general.
If I had to choose one, I would choose the Bills, but more by like a point. It would not be. This line is high to me.
So you're, and I agree with you 100%. I just feel like they're even teams. What about the Bills is that much better than the Bengals? I think I gotta say I think Burrow. I'd rather have Burrow than Josh Allen right now.
Listen, this is bait, man. You're just baiting your friend Jim here. That's all that is.
Nah.
Jim's not going to take it.
No, he's not overrated. He's a good quarterback. He's in the top 5 or 6, but I'd rather have Joe Burrow. He makes fewer mistakes, and he does all the same things that Josh Allen does. He probably can't make the wild, crazy plays that Josh Allen makes Mahomesian, I guess. But other than that, Joe Burrow, to me, plays a smarter game. He turns the ball over fewer times, and he does that with a way worse offensive line. Spencer, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the issue here is that the Bills just they have more upside. They have more upside on both sides of the ball. Where with Burrow, he's less mistake prone, but he doesn't have quite the upside of Allen. Allen can just make these breathtaking throws, the crazy runs. I mean, the thing that scares me about it though is that is he has made too many mistakes, and that a lot of times can be the great equalizer. Yeah, he might have more upside, but if he makes more mistakes, that could ultimately cost him. So, from a value standpoint, to me, the Bengals are a much better value.
Yeah, if you're asking me to pick this game straight up, I'm pretty torn. But with 5 points, I'm going to take Cincinnati all day long. And Josh Allen to me, and this echoes what you guys are saying. He has the feel of a guy who's forcing it a little bit.
Yeah.
He had the big postseason last year. Everybody's talking about him as an MVP candidate, a star. Jim's son is talking about him as the greatest quarterback of all time. That gets in some guys' heads. It feels to me like when things haven't gone real well this year, Josh Allen says, I got to make a play. I'm supposed to be the MVP. And sometimes he has been able to do that. They have had games where he's looked terrific. Other games, he tries to do that, and we see what we saw on Sunday where it's a total mixed bag, and you get away with a mixed bag against the Miami Dolphins starting their third string quarterback. You're not going to get away with a mixed bag against the Bengals. You better play a good game, or the Bengals will beat you. And certainly with 5 points, I would think the Bengals would cover. I also think, guys, this is a lower scoring game than people think. The total's 48, and I know we think shootout. Both these teams go on some long drives.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think when these two get together, it's going to be. I think the Bengals are going to have a chip on their shoulder, right? They kind of got screwed in the playoffs because they didn't get to play that game.
100%.
And everybody talks about DeMar Hamlin. The Bengals are going to have a chip on their shoulder. They're going to be, look, let me just show you what we were going to do to you. And
I'm not
just,
sure.
Just a little bit I saw, the Bengals were the better team in that small little window. I know it's a small sample size, but in that little window, and not just because it was 7-3. The Bengals, to me, I was live betting the Bengals. I mean, I thought they were clearly going to be the better team that night.
Yeah, and I mean, people don't talk about this. Like the NFL said, okay, if it's Bills and Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, we're going to play it at a neutral site.
Exactly.
Well, if the Bengals had won that game, they would have this game
Right.
at home. So to me, if you're going to do that to make things fair, which there's no real way to make it 100% fair in this situation, but if you're going to make things fair, this game ought to be at a neutral site also.
Not only that, they were talking about if the Ravens had beaten the Bengals, they were going to make them coin flip. They were going to coin flip to see who got the host. The Bengals won the division, but they were still going to make the Bengals do a coin flip that decided they hosted that game last Sunday, which was absurd. So the Bengals are getting screwed all the way around. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they come out with a big-time chip. They're just going to have to be able to stop the Buffalo pass rush because their O-line is back to being really bad again. That's what scares me.
Yeah, that's the key. They're going to have to protect Burrow, but Burrow also has among the quickest releases in the NFL, so that helps with a battle. Well, I mean, that's how they made it to the Super Bowl last year with a banged-up offensive line. So he can get the ball out. Switching over to the NFC, the Saturday game, Giants-Eagles divisional battle. We saw it last week. I mean, the more these teams play, the more that tends to favor the dog. And I think, the Eagles killed the Giants the first time they played with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. Then they played in New York, and it was a much closer game. This is back in Philly. Hurts has had a couple more weeks to recover with his shoulder injury. The line's 7.5. I think in some places it's even 7. It's kind of toggled between those two. You guys thinking this is a spot for another dog?
Upset alert. Upset alert. I think the Giants are going to win this game straight up. Jalen Hurts he can't play like he's been playing. He just is not going to be able to do the things that Jalen Hurts does that's made them successful. Them without Lane Johnson has been it's been a huge deal. I don't like the way the Eagles defense is playing. And Brian Daboll this is not an overreaction from the Vikings game, because I can tell you right now, I would like Dallas in this spot too, and it has nothing to do with yesterday. I just don't think the Eagles are nearly as good as everybody thinks they are. And without Jalen Hurts being able to do Jalen Hurts things, it's going to hurt them.
Man, I'm gonna have to take the other side here because I think the Eagles just have too much talent.
All over the Eagles all year, though.
They've had to, not really, but I mean, they can't ignore their talent. I mean, on defense, they've just got their pass rush is insane with the Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Hargrave. I mean, they've got so much talent there. I mean, their secondary, there's 2 elite corners. They've got 2 solid linebackers. I mean, the Giants don't have nearly what the Eagles have. I mean, they do a lot with a little. I'll give them that. Brian Dable, great head coach. I think as far as head coaches, Dable probably is better than Sirianni. But the thing is, though, I mean, Sirianni's just got so much more talent. And Jalen Hurts today was cleared, not on the injury report. I think that bye week's going to do wonders for him. So 7.5's a lot. Not sure if I'd take it for the Eagles, but as of now, I would, because I'm thinking that with a healthy Hurts, that they should win by double digits.
This will absolutely be on my best bet card, by the way. I'm not going to go as far as say money line, but there's no question in my mind that if it stays at 7.5, there's a big difference between 7 and 7.5. And this is going to be a close game one way or the other. I will be very, very surprised if this is not at least a close game. The Giants played well against them without anybody starting a couple of weeks ago. And the Eagles had to win the game to clinch the number 1 seed in the division. So it wasn't like they weren't playing for anything. And the Giants hung tough with them. This is not a team I want to play right now. I can tell you that right now. And we're going to get to futures odds right now. There might be a little bit of value to place on this team, because they're playing really well. If Daniel Jones plays anything, Daniel Jones can out Jalen Hurts in this game.
See, it's appropriate to me that you guys are on opposite sides of this, because I'm torn. Man, it's a lot of points. I don't think the Giants can win straight up. I look at this as it's a major step up in class from the Vikings, especially on the defensive side. The Philly defense is much better than the Minnesota defense all the way around at all 3 levels.
Show Devin's comment.
Oh, Devin, what's up, man?
They had an answer for some guy named Justin Jefferson.
But they also got A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
We doing another face paint bet, guys? Giants plus
sure, if Nick paints his face, and I'll whatever side he takes, as long as he paints his face too and comes on live on Datitude to show it.
We'll let Uncle Big Nick respond to that as we go to the other NFC game. I will say this. I think this game may be the NFC Championship. Cowboys at 49ers. Cowboys, they look fantastic. I mean, forget all the Tom Brady.
Tom Brady
are awful. But Dak Prescott, that is the best game I've ever seen Dak Prescott play. I mean, he was phenomenal.
The Cowboys are the most overrated team left in the playoffs, maybe besides Jacksonville. I mean, if I had to rank the teams that are remaining in the playoffs, 1 through 8, the Cowboys would be 7. There's zero question in my mind the Cowboys would be 7. You can take nothing, and I mean nothing, away from last night. Tampa Bay was a dead team walking. I made the mistake of buying into the Tom Brady thing. Tom Brady looked like he was 55, not 45. The Tampa Bay defense didn't show up. I mean, they just weren't there. They were awful. So you want to talk about overreactions and line spreads. Who should be a 5-point favorite? The Bills over the Bengals, or San Francisco over Dallas? I mean, Dallas ought to be a 6-point underdog, not 3.5. So every Aunt Mabel and drunk Joe on the planet is going to be betting on Dallas this week. Please do. Please keep betting on Dallas. Make this line go down even more so I can wait.
I'm with Jim on this. I just don't see the Dallas hype. I know Dak did really well last night, but it was one game against, like he said, a Bucs team that looked cooked, and just I don't see him replicating this in this week. He needed that. He needed that wild card game. I said it last week. I was on Dallas because I felt like he really needed that game. Him and McCarthy to basically save their jobs in a way. Because like if they'd have gotten bounced by the losing record Tampa Bay team, Jerry would have wanted to go nuclear. But since they won that game so big, I think their jobs are safe. But against the Niners, man, the Niners are at a whole nother level. We're talking about other levels here. To me, the 49ers are on that elite level with the Chiefs, Bills, and Bengals. So, yeah, this is that. I mean, I'm not locking anything in yet, but I have a feeling that might be my best bet.
The one X factor, Zach, is if the Dallas defense can get to Brock Purdy and force him into playing, because Brock Purdy hasn't really played a really tough defense yet. This is going to be the best defense that he plays since he started. And so if they can get to him and force some pressure, that is the one X factor. That is the only way Dallas is going to win this game. Dallas is not going to win a shootout with this team. It needs to be low scoring for Dallas to win. And I know that sounds weird because San Francisco plays such good defense, but they can't let San Francisco just go in a roll. If they start hot, this is one live bet you definitely want to make. If San Francisco takes a 7-0 lead and the live spread is like 6.5, then jump on the Niners. But we'll see how Purdy does against Micah Parsons, who actually kind of got a little banged up last night. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
I will point this out for Dallas, and I'm not nearly as sure as you guys are in this game. I do think 3.5 is too low, and I can't bet Dallas. A short week. They played Monday night. Have to go from Tampa to San Francisco.
This is also the fifth time in 6 games they are on the road.
Yeah, terrible spot
on a short week against a rested San Francisco team.
So yeah, that's tough. San Francisco played Saturday, so they get the extra day where the Cowboys have one fewer day and have to go, across the country. It's a tough spot. I will say this: the turnovers have absolutely plagued Dallas this year. When they have not turned it over, they've played like the best team in the NFL. Last night was one example. They had not had another game with no turnovers since the game in Minnesota where they beat, 41-3. They beat the Vikings.
Yeah, 41-3. I think that's what it was.
So again, that's a hard thing to predict, right? Dak he's led the NFL in interceptions per game. I think Derek Carr led the NFL in interceptions, but Dak didn't play as many games. He led the NFL in interceptions per game. When he's on and he's not making those mistakes, now San Francisco's going to get some pressure on him and may force some of those mistakes. But the Cowboys, turnovers are key for any team. But for me, that's the key stat. When they have refrained from turning the ball over, which is a difficult thing to do, but when they've done it, they have looked unstoppable in the few times they've been able to do that.
You're given what I think is a bad coach 2 fewer days, really, 2 less days than San Francisco had to prepare for this team. Because San Francisco had been preparing for both, but they probably were preparing for Dallas. Let's be real. And so that also makes a big difference. When you're talking about coaching, Shanahan's a way better coach than McCarthy. I don't think anyone can deny that. The entire coaching staff of the San Francisco 49ers is better than the entire coaching staff of the Cowboys. And so one last thing is, other than last night, the Cowboys have been bad on grass this year. And you're talking about another grass field, and I haven't looked at the weather yet, but we know that the San Francisco turf could be a little slippery. Dallas didn't even try to run the ball. I don't even understand why they didn't have Tony Pollard more involved last night.
You're watching Bayou Bets. Drop us your best bet for the divisional weekend in the comments. We want to show them. We'll have more of this on Thursday's show at 4:00. Here is a look at all 4 divisional playoff games on one page. All home favorites between 3.5 the 49ers, 8.5 the Chiefs. So very similar games. I will say this right off the bat, that maybe it's recency bias, but that Sunday slate is as good of a day of NFL football as I can remember in a long time. I mean, what 2 phenomenal games there.
It's really good. But who played the last year when the Chiefs and Bills played that? I bet that was a pretty good one too.
Boy, I'm having trouble remembering.
Because the Chiefs-Bills game was so damn good.
49ers Packers was on Saturday, so it wasn't that one. So the other NFC game
would have been Dallas,
Rams and Niners,
Rams Bucks.
Rams Bucks.
Rams and Bucks. Yeah,
that was a good game too.
Which was a great comeback.
The Rams. Yeah,
the Rams led big, and the Bucks came back.
Yeah.
Not that was a good day too. So this Sunday of divisional weekend, man, people love conference championship. I've heard you say it, Jim. This is just great.
This is the best weekend in all of sports, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. I love last week, and I think it's stupid they call it Super Wild Card. Like there's any other wild card week. If there were like multiple wild card weekends, then sure, call it Super Wild. It just stop already. But
the first year they did that, they did it because it was 3 days.
Right, and
so I get that. But it
was the first time they did it. Now that's how they're going to do it from now on. So stop doing that. But yeah, this is my favorite weekend in sports. It's also a little sad because it's the last weekend where you have 4 football games, and so it kind of little melancholy about that part of it. But yeah, I think this is the best weekend, and it should be like that. And I think you'll have a blowout. There will be one blowout. I don't know which one it's going to be.
Chiefs.
You think it's Chiefs? I kind of think it's going to be San Francisco.
Or San Francisco, maybe. Yeah, I really like San Francisco.
So that means it'll be Bills Bengals because none of us picked that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, you'll have one blowout, but I think you're going to have probably two really good games and one game that's gonna go down in lore, and I don't know which one that's gonna be. There's gonna be one.
Uncle Big Nick says his favorite bet: G-Men plus 7.5 and a Bengals money line parlay. Woo, that pay nice. Couple of dogs there. I actually have a hard time when I look at these, and we'll look at the futures odds in a minute. I hate to do this. I'm not usually like this, but if you're talking straight up, home favorites.
It's not going to happen.
Never. No, happens. It's not. And the Bengals are the obvious one to say they can break that up. But everywhere else I look, it's tough for me to make a straight up case for one of these road teams.
I got to go back and look, but I tell you, it doesn't happen like that. There's going to be two road teams that win, I think, this week. I'm not 100% sure which two, but I think there's going to be two.
Wow. Well, I'm telling you, and that's why it reminds me a little bit of the mid-'90s, those divisional rounds where you'd get the teams that were rested,
right,
and these teams that were stepping up in weight class, and it was just
makes a difference.
No chance. Yeah. And so I don't know if that's the case. Other than Bills-Bengals, it feels like that this weekend, but we'll see. I do think Cowboys-Niners is the NFC Championship game. I think either one of those teams can go to Philly and win. So you guys like Giants-Bengals. Super Bowl odds, and I swear I'm not normally like this, but my one big bucks bet that hit was a favorite money line parlay. I still think there's a little bit of value on the Chiefs here. 3-1 seems high to me.
I don't think so. It's
not crazy.
It's not ridiculous. High, I've been saying. I told you this last week. Take the Chiefs to win the AFC Championship, because if they're as good as you think they are, and you think they're going to roll past Jacksonville, you're not going to get better odds than, what is it? It's probably 150 now. It was 160 earlier last week. But I told you
let's see, we got it's 145 now.
Okay, so I told you last week when I got it at 160. And I did it simply because I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to win the AFC Championship, but they're going to be, when they win this week, and whether they're on a neutral site or hosting Cincinnati, it doesn't make a difference. You're not going to get plus 145. You're not going to get, so to me, that's still a value. I still think that's a value. To me, that's the play you make. Again, not necessarily because you think the Chiefs are going to win, but because there's value there, and you're not going to get that number next week. So that's where I think the value is.
For sure. And as far as Super Bowl, to me, the only value is the Bengals there at 8-1. I mean, that just screams value to me, because to me, they're not that far behind the Chiefs and Bills, and yet you're getting them at such a better price. So I got them there. And I'm surprised it didn't go down any. I thought it would have gone down to like plus 700 or something, but I'd got a ticket on them before the playoffs started, and I'm gonna let that thing ride.
I'm gonna say this too, because I said since about October, this felt like it was a year where some weird team was gonna win. I have a future on San Francisco, I have a future on Kansas City, and I have a future on Cincinnati. So if any of those three teams win, it's not only it'll more than pay for the future bets that I have made already. I'll be in the positive. That being said, I've been saying since October, this felt like a year where something weird was going to happen and some weird team was going to win the Super Bowl. To me, the only weird team out there that has a chance to win the Super Bowl, it's not Dallas at plus 850 or whatever they are. It's the Giants at 30-1. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but I think that's a value bet. If they win this week, they've only got to win 2 games, and I know it's against probably the 49ers and either the Chiefs, Bills, or Bengals. But at 30-1, it's a value. That's what we're talking about, values. And that is a value play. I just think and I agree with Spencer about the Bengals being a value at plus 800. I also think that's a value.
I actually think on the Bengals, you'd be better off. They're going to be underdogs 3 straight weeks. I mean, they're underdogs this week. They'll be underdogs in Kansas City. They'll be underdogs against 49ers or
I guess
maybe not the Eagles.
That's the definition of not value then.
Yeah, I mean, you just bet them week to week at this point, I would think.
You probably would be better off doing that. If you did a money line 3 weeks in a row, you'd probably fare better that way.
Now you're assuming matchups there a little bit. Maybe Jacksonville upsets Kansas City. That changes obviously, but I don't think that's going to happen. I just think Kansas City, if you think about this, the only team that Kansas City would be an underdog against is Buffalo. Okay, and that game will be on a neutral site. They might be a 1-point dog, and maybe not even then, because they're going to have an extra day's rest if that game materializes, right? It'll be in Atlanta next Sunday. The Bills will have played on Sunday. The Chiefs play on Saturday, so they get an extra day. And the Bills will have just played presumably a tougher game as well. And they haven't had a bye week like the Chiefs had. So to me, the only team the Chiefs are going to be dogs against, they have all these intangible advantages, and I can get them at 3-1 to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but you're still talking about it's not going to be big favorite against Buffalo, and if they play Philadelphia or San Francisco, they're not going to be a big favorite there either. You're talking about a field goal. I don't. You put you do a see what the money line parlay is on. What are they plus 400 this week or plus 500?
Minus 455.
Okay, so minus 455. So do minus 455. Find a calculator and see if minus 455 plus 105 or even money, and then minus 130 is a better value. It probably is.
It might be. Yeah, it might be. And just to be clear, what I'm saying, both games next week are on Sunday, but this weekend the Chiefs are playing Saturday, so they're getting that extra day of rest over the Bills, who have, at least on paper, a tougher opponent. I think it's just set up very well for the Chiefs. Put it that way.
I agree.
The bye.
I think the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, to have home field. The Bills and Bengals have to go butt heads. Well, they get to play a much weaker team, at least on paper. So I know it's not sexy to pick the favorite, but I think Kansas City is the rightful favorite.
I don't think they're going to win it, though. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think the NFC is going to win the Super Bowl.
Maybe not. Big Bucks. I also have a ticket on the Niners to win the Super Bowl, so I'm covered there. Big Bucks were ugly, guy. They were ugly.
Well, my problem was that I put too much stock into the Bucks and should have even those. The reason why I didn't even them out, I ended up putting more on that parlay, on that teaser. I had two teasers in case people don't know what I bet, but I had two teasers. One was Bucks and Giants, and the other teaser was Niners and Bengals. And obviously I hit the Niners and Bengals teaser, but I got a little backed off of the teaser because the spreads changed right before it was time to turn in our big Bucks picks. And so I actually had both of those the same amount. And then I got hosed at the end, and I'm like, you know what? I don't like this number as much. I backed off, and I should have just gone with what I had before, and my number would have been closer to 0. I still would have lost a little bit, but I'd have been like minus 10 instead of minus 50.
Yeah.
Learning lessons.
For sure. Yeah, and now we're pretty close there at the top because I had a pretty disastrous week there with my teaser sunk me to the Vikings. I had the Vikings +3, which they lost by 7, so that one didn't hit. And then the Bills sold me. I thought the Bills were going to steamroll Miami, but nope.
It sure looked like that halfway through the first quarter. But man, Buffalo has steamrolled a couple teams. They steamrolled Tennessee early. There was another game where they looked real good, and they looked like everybody thought they were supposed to look like they won at Kansas City. So there's been a couple of games where they looked like when everyone thought they were. Shout out to the late Denny Green. But the rest of the season, they've just kind of been really inconsistent.
Don't you think when they lose, it's going to be because they lost it and not the other team won?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because on paper, if they play well, there's nobody who can beat them. But they haven't played well nearly often enough.
Yeah, they have the upside. To me, they have the most upside out of any of these teams, like out of the Bengals and Chiefs. But I feel like they're too reckless, though. Like Josh Allen's just a little too reckless.
I hate to swell Uncle Big Nick's head, but if San Francisco plays as well as they can play on any given day, no one's going to beat them. I don't care if it's the Bills, the Chiefs. It doesn't make a difference. If they play as well as they can play on both sides of the ball, and that's a big if, obviously, for any team. But if they do, they're not getting beat.
Look, I think the 49ers are going to the Super Bowl, and I'm very high on them. The best team they have played during this 11-game winning streak is who? The Dolphins?
Don't care.
The Bucks, the Chargers, the Seahawks. Who's the best team they played?
Don't care.
No, nobody even close to what they're going to play the rest of the way.
They completely pass every eye test. The only thing I think they worry me in a little bit is the defensive backfield was a little shaky against the Seahawks and I don't remember what his name is, but number 7 got burned like 3 times, really bad, and against DK Metcalf. So that worries me a little bit in potential matchup with Philadelphia, that A.J. Brown could give them problems if that guy's on him. But at the same time, the rest of their defense is so damn good. Bosa's a beast. The rest of the defensive line's a beast. Their linebackers are insanely good. The Miko Ryans is he's got to be a head coach somewhere. That guy is a phenomenal defensive coordinator. And I mean, just go down the list. I mean, if Purdy's playing like a top 10 NFL quarterback and the dude was the last pick in the draft, it's sick. I'm just saying, as good as Kansas City is, they have so many weaknesses, Kansas City. They have a lot of weaknesses. And Buffalo, again, Josh Allen, to me, until he proves that he can do something in a really super big game, they're going to screw it up. So to me, it's Bengals or Niners.
All right.
Or Chiefs. But
all right.
Because the Chiefs can beat somebody when they play bad. So
I know we've had an all football show, but that's the time of year that it is. Pelicans are off tonight. They're back home to play Miami tomorrow. LSU men have lost 4 in a row after starting 12-1. They're in a tailspin. The LSU women, though, still on I think 17-0 or 18-0 now.
Didn't they pass UConn?
I think they have, yeah. And look, they haven't played a ranked team yet, so it's a little weird. But they've also beat everybody by double digits.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But they're like 7-1 to win the national title. They're like the 4th choice. The women's Final Four is in Dallas this year, so it's not that far away for LSU fans.
Sounds like a road trip.
A Bayou Bets road trip? Maybe so. Maybe so. All right, final thoughts, guys. Let's get out of here. We'll be back with you. Spencer and I are on the Fantasy Roundup 2 o'clock tomorrow, and Bayou Bets 4 o'clock on Thursday, where we will go in depth on these games again and have our final best bets. And we'll get ready for divisional weekend. But final thoughts to Spencer.
All right, yeah, I think this might be the end for both Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. You know, 2 of the all-time greats, but their play fell off a cliff this year. I mean, neither one were anywhere close to what they normally are. I mean, they both declined heavily, and I mean, Rodgers, I'd say maybe a little less likely considering he's got a lot of money he'd given up by retiring. But Brady, I mean, I think we may have saw the last Tom Brady game last night. I really do. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if he came back, but it would surprise me somewhat because he just does not look right. And he said it a few years back, when I suck, I'm going to retire. And I feel like he just is going to have a sucky year overall. So I'm thinking at least one, maybe both, hang it up.
All right, Jim Derry.
You know, to Spencer's point, he reminded me so much of Drew Brees' last 2 years, starting off decent, and he was decent the first half of the year, but he tailed off so much going down the stretch. I mean, just so much. And I agree. I think that's the last time you'll see Tom Brady. He can play somewhere if he wants to, but I don't think he's going to. I think I agree with Spencer that he's going to hang it up, and Aaron Rodgers is probably going to go hang out with Ricky Williams somewhere and do yoga. I don't know what the hell's
ayahuasca.
Hey, yeah, whatever. But I will say this:
go with Cliff Kingsbury to Thailand.
Yeah, exactly. go have fun there. Stay there, by the way, Cliff Kingsbury. Let's say this. I will make this little piece of advice. If you like something, and you don't think you're gonna, whether you think you might get a better number or whatever, don't wait. And proof and point is, you know, I usually wait to do my analysis before I make any picks, but there were 2 numbers that stuck out at me this week, and I went and bet it right as soon as I saw it. I mean, I'm not waiting for it to change. And you know how much I love the teasers. I'm only going to play one this week, and at least officially, and that's Chiefs minus 2.5 and Bengals. Now it's plus 11 on a teaser, and I got it at 10.5 the other night when I saw it because I thought that line would. There's no way that line's going to stay at 4.5. It's going to go to 3.5, right? So if you see a number that makes sense, don't wait for it to change, even if you may get a better number later, because you don't know, especially with Chiefs, if you're going to do a teaser leg. And if you don't like Cincinnati, fine, and you think they could get blown out, pick someone else. But don't wait, because that Chiefs line is not going to stay 8.5. It's going to go to 9, if for no other reason besides the books trying to protect themselves from teaser legs.
All right. And my final thought, just a couple of them, one quick piggyback on Tom Brady. There are odds out there on who Tom Brady's next team will be.
Yeah, I meant to bring that up. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, the Bucs are the favorite at 2-1. and then it's the Raiders at plus 250. Then it's a big drop off to anybody else. There's also odds for Derek Carr and Lamar Jackson, by the way. So we wrote those up. There's some technical problems with bet.NOLA.com right now. Our whole system is having issues. I think if you get it from the mobile device, you can still see it. I just checked and it's not working still.
Okay.
But if you Google like Saints, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, like it'll come up on Google and you can get to it that way. You can't get to it from the homepage. But super interesting stuff. The Saints, by the way, the lowest odds for any of those guys would be Derek Carr at 8-1. So not a great chance of any of them. My other final thought, just wanted to shout out Tulane basketball. It's been a great athletic year for Tulane. They have number 1 Houston in the house tonight. Houston's an 11-point favorite, so not expected to be like a total blowout. But if you are in the neighborhood and can get out to Devlin Fieldhouse, this would be the night to go.
Zach, can I ask you a question real quick before we sign off? To your point about the numbers, and I saw them on DraftKings. I didn't see them on Caesars. Is that what you said you saw them?
Yeah, I think DraftKings is the only one that offers them right now.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Here, is this just a money-raking scheme on Tom Brady? You can bet all these teams, but there was none. There was no retires bet on there.
Ordinarily, if that happens, you that would be a push.
Okay. Because if you can't get your money back, if it's not a push, if he picks nobody, then you can't make that bet at all. Because I think retire is probably even money, and then everyone else after that. And I think the only other place, I think the only place he possibly plays there's 2 places he possibly plays. One's Las Vegas. He's not going back to Tampa. One's Las Vegas. And the weirdest of weird, if by some chance he and Bill Belichick have some kind of drinking session.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
In the offseason, I could see him going back there for one final hurrah and saying, you know what? I'm going to hang it up in Foxborough. I'm going to play one more year, and that's going to be it. And that actually maybe could rejuvenate him. Other than that, I don't see him going. Don't bet on anyone else because he's not going anywhere else.
No, I completely agree. It would be so Raiders to sign him. It would be so much like the Raiders, but you could also see it happen in a Brady and Belichick reunion one more time. So on that note, on that crazy note, we'll wrap it up. Spencer and I back 2:00 tomorrow, Fantasy Roundup. 4:00, we're right back here on Bayou Bets divisional round. We will have Max Meyer from Caesar Sportsbook talking trends with us. Gabe Henderson might stop by, and that'll do it. Jerry says just retire Brady. I'm just glad you're not telling us to retire yet. We will see you on Thursday, 4:00, everybody. Thanks for watching.